sir.
I appreciate it. What
No
an
problem.
amazing experience we're going to be having. Let's get to it. Let's get to this interview. Have a seat.
Good. All right.
So I'm glad we got to meet up with you, Michael. And you're telling me the other day that you've had a box that was given to you after John Andrews passed, and his wife gave you his archives of his Bob Lazar interview. And right now we're going to be going over some of the audio tapes, but what amazes me is, who is this John Andrews? What was his purpose for meeting up with Bob Lazar in the first place?
Good question. John Andrews is kind of an unsung hero within the plastic model industry. He was the senior project design engineer for Testers Model Corporation based out of Rockford. His office was in San Diego, California. And the backstory is they wanted to do a plastic model kit of the Lazar S4 Sport model. So John Andrews interviewed Bob Lazar, got the technical details, incorporated those details into the plastic model, which became the S4 Sport model, and that's the background.
So before we get to the audio tapes, again, what was John Andrews' motivation? He really believed the Bob Lazar story, and he's looking for smoking gun proof and thinking that he could actually build?
It's a very good question. Yes, he did believe the story, and he wanted to put this in a model form for educational purposes for the youth. And he always felt that building models educates people and gets them motivated. So that was his motivation, and he felt there was enough evidence to support the existence of putting it into a model form. Correct.
So we're going to be listening to these incredible historical tapes that you've received, but actually, Michael, how did you come in possession of these materials?
Good question. I had met John Andrews in person in San Diego back around 1998, just before he passed away, and kind of developed a friendship with John. He later passed away. His wife Darlene contacted me later, and she said, "Mike, I've got 7 boxes waiting for you." And it was just an inspirational moment, highlight of my life. Drove to San Diego, picked up the boxes, and maintained an important part of our national history by keeping that within the historical archives. And within those 7 boxes were drawings, notes, audio tape interviews that have never been heard before. And that's what you have now. So that's where we're moving to. Yep.
So what was John Andrews' impressions of Bob Lazar?
I get the impression after looking at the documents that John was skeptical, but he was open-minded. He wanted further evidence to support the claim, and that's why he sent out FOIA requests to actually visit alleged S4 facility to get some more historical background. So I think he was open-minded, but there was enough there to build a plastic model.
You know, again, these tapes are so amazing, and John Andrews' motivation behind getting to Bob Lazar, asking these questions, and now finally the world's hearing it for the first time. Let's listen more to the incredible tapes revealed by Michael Schratt, the Bob Lazar interview.
Yeah, more or less. You can tell it must have puddled there because there's tracks that have mudded up in a few places.
What about inside the base? Is it just rough concrete work? Or
No, it's the entire slab is large piece of concrete, and it's I can put a gloss or a lacquer coat on it. But it's concrete, but they put some kind of coating on it. Yeah, but very, very shiny. Also, probably slippery too.
Is there a lot of painted marks on the floor? Or like red lines or places like water?
No, I saw it. It was yellow tape. But I don't know. That's the only thing I remember noticing.
Was there any rules about rings, watches? You had to remove things before you went into these areas, or?
Well, you removed those before you went into the installation.
Did you give your badge then? Did you exchange a badge that you
No,
carried all
to
the time?
No. Well, to get in, you get a badge. To get in.
But you didn't have a badge when you first get there?
No.
And exchange it like for a white one, for a yellow one, for a red one?
No.
You got on the airplane, you went there, you went to
you
the
get on with an
installation,
escort,
and then you got your badge at the installation.
right at S4, not at Grove.
Were you given like one of those little green U.S. government ID cards with your picture on it or anything, like a military badge?
Didn't get a film dose badge either, nothing.
How'd you get on board the airplane? Escort all the time?
on board the plane at
The EG&G.
Yeah, Dennis was always waiting there for me.
Okay.
So there were no dose patches. There wasn't any beer, evidently, or anything.
Not that I saw on anybody.
That's really interesting. It tells you something about the material. You know, I mean, you've dealt with it. God, you dealt with all that crap.
I mean, Los Alamos. You know,
Mark II.
And places where there was no
That's
radioactive material at all. You had a dose badge on anyway.
Yeah, my son-in-law is a nuclear power plants officer aboard the Nimitz. And he says, oh, yeah, badges all the time. They're tested all the time.
Yeah.
Everybody's got them.
Everywhere. But no, none for that area.
She's got to say something about the safety of the material. And there's no
disregard for human life.
One or the other, yeah.
Yeah, perhaps that. No, I don't think so. I wouldn't think so.
When you got the job or whatever, were you given any kind of like an outline of what has to happen by a certain date, or was it just go as you have to, or get it done as it goes, or?
It was strange. There was really no, goals set.
Were there any like morning briefings, afternoon briefings, or?
No, I wasn't to that stage yet. I was more of a casual employee. There was no set job for me to perform yet. You know,
what did they ask of you, Bob, when you first were interviewed, or the second interview at EG&G? What were they concerned
It was
about?
strange. They went through with a typical interview. What I had done. In
Incidentally,
previous
this is just
Mhm.
amongst us. This is not going to go anywhere.
What I had done in previous jobs with my field of expertise was specifically what I did in Los Alamos and things along that sort. But the second interview, which I think really weighed heavily, they really wanted to know what I did in my spare time. It was almost like my personal life. And, I kept reverting back to, I worked, I wasn't sure that they were interested in me, and I kept, pulling out of my memory things that I had also worked with, and I said, cryostats. I did a lot of work with cryostats in Los Alamos, a lot of cryogenic work, low temperature this, and they said, yeah. So, about this other stuff you did. Yeah, they'd always go back to, it was almost like a personality interview or to see what my interests were out of work, and which completely confused me. So at that time, then I just gave up and just answered the questions.
You think they were looking for a situation where if they had to deny anything that you've ever said, they could find it easy to do so because of the background?
Maybe so. They asked me all kinds of off-the-wall questions and things they knew that obviously they had spoken to somebody that knew.
Did they know about the brothel and all of this other stuff?
They knew about that. They knew about everything, a bunch of crazy things I did. And
it's almost like they were.
And in fact,
they would deny you something.
Well, they went on and on about all this stuff, and they said, I don't know who they spoke to. When I was 15 or something, I blew out the second-story windows in my parents' house. And they brought that up, and I said, "Where are you guys getting this from?" And they had all this personal information about me, and I finally said somewhere in the interview that I said, "Is this working against me, by the way? Because now I'm not sounding like a guy that you'd want to hire." And then, they all laughed, and that was essentially the end of the interview when I was told to come back after that. But I don't know what the point was.
And they checked on me. They checked on my neighbors. They never came to me, never talked with me, but they talked with my neighbors.
They never talked to my parents.
Oh, they talked
in the
to
Air
me.
Force. They talked to all the neighbors in the neighborhood. They never talked to my parents.
In fact, when I had heard that there were two investigators, this goes back to 1959, and I called the FBI office in Chicago, and I said, "Look, this is what I do. I'm an aviation historian, and I discovered the U-2 and what it does, and I have an interest in aerial reconnaissance airplanes, RB-57D, RB-36Js, And I said, I'll be happy to talk with you, but this is what I do. I intend to keep doing it. And I'll come down to your office or send your guy out, and we'll sit down and talk." And they never confirmed it or anything else. They never said that it was their people or anything. My neighbors didn't know. They just said that They asked me, are you changing jobs? Are you going to work for the government or something, John? Because two guys have been asking all kinds of questions about me. Was I a good father, a good citizen, all, the whole background. So I discovered that. I called FBI, and then they never called me in, and they never confirmed that it was them. And at that time, it could have been CIA people, because I was interested in the U-2 at that time. That's what it was all about.
Yeah, one of my friends who they talked in depth with, he said, again, they were, they really wanted to know about my personality. They said, in fact, I think specifically one of their questions was, now look, when this guy gets mad, does he start throwing screwdrivers around or things like that? And, how much does he drink? Questions along those lines.
Stability issues, yeah.
Drugs and things like that.
Yeah, of course, drug stuff came up.
Mark got into hot water. He kind of liked a little lady in England who was with the IRA. The Air Force frowned upon it.
Yep.
Caused a little problem.
I dealt with the OSI on that.
Yeah, they came and pulled one of my friends out of work. USI up in Tonopah.
And they're ones to find any little niche they can get a crowbar into about your past and whatnot that they can use eventually as evidence why you shouldn't be around.
Well, should we go back and make some sketches and side views and try and get it as right as possible? We'll have a great variety so you can look at it and make your comments. We'll try and get the levels right and everything else. And we can take it from there. And I can do the nice illustration. You might want to do the little keys and insights into it, all that stuff. But I'll do the scene. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, that should be a neat drawing. I'd love to have that enlarged in something. In fact, do a line drawing of that too, or photocopy it before you color it, so I can have my T-shirt.
Yeah,
I've always wanted.
yeah.
Of course, you might have to sign a licensing agreement with the government or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is still I just wonder how far they're going to go before they'll tolerate and allow everybody to mess with this before they say something.
Unless, like so many people said, maybe that's their intention. But, I find that hard to believe.
How do you... It's so well contained. How do you prove it or disprove it? Other than,
Is it that well contained, though? I mean, is it really? Look how much...
No, it's not. But to your question, do you ever feel you want to get back into the physics side of it? I mean, just...
Oh, yeah.
Making pictures is wonderful if it pays the rent, but I mean, you've got to because of your background and knowledge.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You want to get back into it somewhere, somehow.
I wish I could have just been there a little longer, and now I wouldn't be so flabbergasted with everything I saw. I can concentrate on the missing pieces of information that I want. Yeah, I want back in, but not, on my own terms.
Is Dennis absolutely stable? Is he content and happy with what he's doing and never, ever will ever say anything about it?
I don't think so. How can anybody be that way? There's got to be a little pride point in everyone's life.
I mean, the other physicists or engineers, whatever they were, whatever specialty they had, there's got to be a point where they begin to think that, God, if the other scientists in this field knew this,
right?
Thermodynamicists, whatever was going on, there's got to be something there that would potential benefit if we could get this out. And unless they're doing that, is it being filtered into industry somehow?
I
select companies, EG&G or whoever into the university system.
If it's not, and it's just the other way, just the people that had guts to say anything.
Was he looking for like a new form of metapropulsion that he could maybe develop his own device?
Well, John was very technical. He was very detail-oriented. He had paid attention to detail, and he wanted to know all of the specific details regarding the length, the diameter, entryway hatch, if this thing was real, what did it look like, what were the internal components, and those type details would be incorporated into the model, and so that's why he asked that.
So when John Andrews passed, Darlene called you up, and it sounded exciting, obviously. You received the package, but what's incredible is that these tapes were preserved. What were the exact tapes? Were they cassette tapes?
Cassette tapes, old school cassette tapes.
And then we're doing some audio enhancements because it was a little hissy.
Right.
But we're actually doing a dehiss, so we're actually restoring the audio quality to its best form. But as we're listening to Bob Lazar, he seems that you can tell that he's a little younger and a little, not quite as refined as he is now in his speech. But you could hear that he was really adamant about what he is saying. I didn't hear any kind of deception. Again, he could just be a great actor, but John Andrews seemed like he had some kind of motivation to get to Bob Lazar. Again, we're looking at this and listening to it. What's your thoughts, again, on John Andrews' motivation? Like, who got in his ear saying, you got to go take a look at this Bob Lazar story?
Well, he always had an interest in aviation, and this kind of tied in together, and it was his goal to vet out the details so that he could build an actual plastic model given the details provided by Bob Lazar.
What kind of time did you spend there when you were there? I mean, did you spend like at the most a few hours? Did you spend a whole day?
Sometimes I spent up to 8 hours, but that was only on a couple occasions. Usually it was only about 4 or 5 hours.
And where did you eat?
Usually I
Did they
did.
have a break room?
No, because I'd eat before I went out there. I usually eat about 3:30 before I went out, and when you got to 51 and waited for the bus, there was a little like snack shop cafeteria thing where you could get something, but there was no place to eat down there.
Did they have drinking fountains at all?
Yeah, they had drinking fountains, but there was no place.
No Coke machines or...
No, I never did see
the guard
any,
go
but
with you to the men's room?
yes. I never did see, and went inside too. I never did see any place to eat, but then I never asked, so I don't know. Maybe, and like I said, I only saw a little bit of the installation, and where I worked, this thing could be big. Of course, it could only be that size too, but I just don't know.
So how many times were you actually out there?
6, something like that.
The guard was with you all that time, constantly. And was this the case with everybody that was there for the most part? Or just a new man, a new kid?
Most of the time, but most of the time with other people, but more with me. Now, it wasn't every single time, because when I worked with Barry, showing me the way things operated, that was the first time we were alone, and I actually got to kind of joke around with somebody. So we did have some alone time there.
But there was never any socializing off that facility or back here in Las Vegas or anything.
No, like I said, that's one of the reasons I think they worked on the buddy system. You have someone to work with and someone to talk to.
It's almost like the nuclear bomb thing in the submarine.
So you have someone to let out stuff to,
Yeah.
but he's also part of the project. So you can talk to him, but that's it.
Sounds like he was given good psychological studies.
Well, who was the buddy that you had? Was it
Barry.
Barry?
Barry.
Was he young? Or
Older than me, maybe 35, 40.
did you get to talk a lot about where you come from and where you went
No,
to
we didn't get
school?
that. No, we didn't get that far.
With the intensity of the guard, what was he guarding you against?
I have no idea. It was just there.
Afraid you're going to take something or
I don't know. It was
make
almost
a
seemed
phone
like it
call,
was
but
just.
you couldn't make a phone call.
It almost seemed like it was just intimidation.
Oh, that could be too.
I don't know if it really did serve any purpose.
Now, did you see it when it was flight tested? You couldn't tell where the door was anymore on it? I mean, it just sort of blends back in when they put the door on completely?
Unless the door was facing the other side. I didn't see it.
Did you ever see it in the hangar with the door on it?
No.
You saw it, though. That's it as a model. It's only going to be really neat on the inside. It's one of those things you can pop the top off.
everything is. I think this is the type of project that's got to have artwork on a box.
That looks like the most boring model.
Yeah.
And then even an inset of a gray at one of the seats inside, and do a little plastic gray figure or two, or three or four up in the top.
A guard.
You know, the question is, what was the total crew complement on this?
Were there any dogs out there? Any dog handler type?
You know, it's so remote and buried so far. Maybe they felt that anybody trying to come in would have been caught at the periphery.
Well, I thought maybe they might.
Yet at the same time,
the guys that peripherate, the edge on the base.
well, look at what happened this week with the British that got on board for that test, that nuclear test. There were 3 people almost at ground zero. They were, what, a half a mile away or something? That's pretty deep penetration. for God's
Yeah, but
sake.
that's an easy place to get on. You just hike. There's no security there at all. That's nuts.
Come over the fence near Mercury and then just
Oh yeah,
work your
I
way
mean,
in.
you can make a big deal out of that. I don't see the problem. You could walk right onto ground zero.
Well, I was told by
Why they want to.
OSI colonel. This goes back in the 78 about Area 51. He said, John, if
Yeah,
they really
I've seen someone walk onto 51.
well, no, he said if somebody really in numbers made an intense effort to penetrate 51, and there was enough people doing it, it could be done. Because we don't have that many people out there to handle a real en masse charge, so to speak, of people trying to get into the area. And he says that's one of the reasons why we kind of keep it quiet, low key, so that we don't get hundreds of off-roaders out in that area and trying to penetrate. He says we really couldn't keep them all away. Now that may have been
Probably
bullshit,
true.
but then again, maybe it was true. I don't know. What, did you get an A10 in the strafe from it?
Yeah, what lengths would they go to?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because there's still a lot of crap out there at Area 51 that's flying. Interesting machine. Hot stuff.
So last night, you were sharing with us the audio tapes,
Right.
and it was the first time we've heard it. But James C. Goodall was there as well, and we had a discussion. It was kind of cool. What do you think James C. Goodall's opinion of Bob Lazar? You know, they're really good friends, right?
He believes Bob Lazar's story completely, 100%. So,
So when James C. Goodall believes in Bob Lazar, but then there's so many people that kind of still are on the fence. Like you said, we need the evidence, right?
right.
Do you think we'll ever find it? These tapes are pretty provocative, but will we ever break down the doors?
That's what we need, right? We need the physical evidence. Where is the physical evidence? If there really were 9 saucers, where are they now? Did they move them? Are they still there? Or was it all disinformation? I remain skeptical. I need more evidence, so that's what we're looking for.
Again, let's listen to another audio right now from Bob Lazar, the interview.
It had
looking, or
it had a cap that fit over it. This is where the 115 sat, and that was a copper color.
the cap was too? Or
No,
just
the
cone
cap
inside
was
it?
just the cone inside, or the 115 inside.
And then this tube, I guess, went to the.
No,
These
this
guys,
because
or-
the reactor was removed, and this tube just goes to the base.
Oh, okay. What goes on in the tube? Is that
I think this gets into the reactor portion. The 115 sits in here, and it's in a triangular shape, and the point of it sits level with this tube. And I think this is where the reaction's taking place, where they it really looks like a little accelerator, where they're accelerating a proton, interacting it with here, and then on the base here. Now all this happens within 2 inches, which is fantastic. On the base here, there's some thermionic generator, and this is where they're converting the heat to electrical power, and where it's producing as a byproduct the gravity wave, which for some reason propagates to the skin of this device. But the
was the 115 a square-based triangular shape, or is it a complete
No,
triangular?
just like that, a piece with ridges on it. Get rid of this line. Just a slice. I'm gonna draw this in.
Oh,
How did you
From what I
handle-
understand, the way these are cut is the 115 comes in discs, like silver dollar size. They're stacked up. I don't know how they're attached together. This is put on a lathe and cut into a cone. And then with the cone, they slice through it. And then those slices form these, so they have a little curve on top.
It'd almost be like that
Exactly,
as I go through.
exactly. Now, why
Yeah.
this is done, I don't know. If it's just to cut it in a triangle, why not take a piece and do
Do a
this?
pie.
Obviously, there's some reason they have to go through all that trouble. But that's what the ridges
Something.
are on them.
Probably something about surface area. I mean,
I don't know.
is it heavy material?
Yes. Yeah, you can tell it's strange. Just holding it with tongs, it's over heavy.
Was it radioactive at all?
Supposedly it's an alpha emitter, but the piece that I had and I tested, it was just, if it is, it's the lowest level alpha particle emitter I've ever. You just let it run for hours and try and gauge it over background. It might be 1 or 2 counts every 15 or 20 minutes above background. So it's, I don't know what.
So what you're saying is that it's extremely safe
Yes.
to work.
Now, all
Toxic?
heavy. Well, okay, all heavy metals are toxic.
Yeah, the
And
machining,
generally
the cutting, anything like that would
Generally,
be
the
toxic.
heavier they get, the more toxic they are. So I imagine it's highly toxic. Now, it may not be, but I think following along standard lines of the normal elements, I would imagine it's very toxic. I saw no oxide coating on it. It looked a
Non-reactive,
bright
then.
copper color.
If it stayed that way.
Right.
It's relatively stable.
Right. Plutonium, for instance, it ignites on contact with air. It tarnishes instantaneously. Uranium, too.
You say it's copper colored?
Yeah,
Is
like
it
a burnished.
Like that over there?
Beryllium color?
Your pot under the phone there?
Nah, beryllium's too gold. In this area, but brighter, right in here.
See, like the left of your flip.
Yeah,
phone.
Yeah. Yeah, is that pretty close?
That's an interesting material.
I would say.
Yeah. All the things you've talked about.
I
That's
would
really
imagine they would, after they lathe these cones, whatever, they take this scrap and recycle it to make more? Or?
I'm sure they don't just throw it away. Which makes me think that they're making these discs, that they're melting the material and then cutting them again.
Did you ever see any physical properties listed for the material?
Yeah, melting point, a couple other things too. I wrote them down. Gene has them. I don't remember them off the top of my head.
So this little incense burner, if you will, whatever you're sticking this in, is it basically the same color as the element 115?
No, that's the same color as everything else in the 150. Did you ever see the model that was made?
Of the reactor?
Yeah.
I saw it once on the table in here.
Oh, because
when I came over, it was just the.
there's some video on it.
And I think I have the video. Yeah.
Yes, that was half scale. I had a friend build that, make it out of metal, and it was very, very close to what it looked like.
You still have it, the model?
No, I don't. I have the video of it though.
I have the video of it, I believe.
That was very close.
So looking up, at the ceiling or whatever, is there a deck above the deck we're on, with the chairs and the console?
Yes.
And it goes
Yeah.
up through that deck?
Yeah. Now that's where I believe this is just a guess out of the clear blue sky. Should there be any navigating equipment or any other heavy electronic or pseudo-electronic equipment, that's where it is.
On the next day.
Right. On that, because on the ridges here, you see about 3 foot square black. I don't know if they were windows, ports, or if they were just black areas, but certainly something is going on that other level that, of great interest that I didn't get to see.
And they are square?
Yeah.
Are they rectangular?
Incredible historical evidence from the late John Andrews as he interviews Bob Lazar in regards to the craft itself and what's coming up next. We're going to be bringing it to you tomorrow. He's going to go into heavy detail in regards to S4, what it's like in there, and many other revealing moments. As we said, the Bob Lazar lost audio tapes have arrived via Michael Surratt, and we're sharing with you the second portion of this world exclusive. Never heard before? It's been almost 30 years since these audio tapes have been listened to by anyone. So buckle up and enjoy, again, the Bob Lazar lost tapes.
It had
looking? Or?
Yeah, it had a cap that fit over it. This is where the 115 sat. That was a copper color.
The cap was too?
No, the cap was, just the cone or the 115 inside.
And this tube, I guess, went to the...
No,
these
this
guys,
because
or?
the reactor was removed and this tube just goes to the base.
Oh, okay. What goes on in the tube? Is that...
I think this gets into the reactor portion. The 115 sits in here and it's in a triangular shape, and the point of it sits level with this tube. And I think this is where the reaction's taking place, where they it really looks like a little accelerator where they're accelerating a proton, interacting it with here, and then on the base here. Now all this happens within 2 inches, which is fantastic. On the base here, there's some thermionic generator, and this is where they're converting the heat to electrical power, and where it's producing as a byproduct the gravity wave, which for some reason propagates to the skin of this device. But
was the 115 a square-based triangular shape, or is it a complete triangular?
Just like that, a piece with ridges in it. Just a slice.
Oh.
From what I understand, the way these are cut is the 115 comes in discs, like silver dollar size. They're stacked up. I don't know how they're attached together. This is put on a lathe and cut into a cone. Mm-hmm. And then with the cone, they slice through it. And then those slices form these. So they have a little curve on top.
It'd almost be like that.
Exactly.
As they go through.
Exactly. Now, why this is done, I don't know. If it's just to cut it in a triangle, why not take a piece and do this? Obviously, there's some reason they have to go through all that trouble. But that's what the ridges are on them.
Probably something about surface area.
I don't know.
Is it heavy material?
Yes. Yeah, you can tell it's strange. Just holding it with tongues, it's over heavy.
Is it radioactive?
Supposedly it's an alpha emitter, but the piece that I had and I tested, it was just, if it is, it's the lowest level alpha particle emitter I've ever. You just let it run for hours and try and gauge it over background. It might be 1 or 2 counts every 15 or 20 minutes above background, so I don't know what.
So what you're saying is that it's extremely safe
Yes.
to work.
Now, all heavy.
Toxic? in
Well,
terms
okay,
of-
all heavy metals are toxic.
Yeah, the
and
machining,
generally
the cutting, anything like that would be
Generally, the
toxic.
heavier they get, the more toxic they are. So I imagine it's highly toxic. Now, it may not be, but I think following along standard lines of the normal elements, I would imagine it's very toxic. I saw no oxide coating on it. It looked a
Non-reactive,
bright
then.
copper color.
You know, if it stayed that way.
Right.
It's relatively stable.
Right. The plutonium, for instance, I mean, it ignites on contact with air. It tarnishes instantaneously. Uranium, too.
You say it's copper colored?
Yeah,
Is
like
it
a burnished.
Like that over there? The,
Beryllium color?
your pot under the phone there?
Nah, beryllium's too gold. In this area, but brighter, right in here.
See, like the left of your flip.
Yeah,
your phone.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that pretty close?
That's an interesting material.
I would say.
Yeah. All the things you've talked about.
I
That's
would
really
imagine they would, after they lay these cones, whatever, they take this scrap and recycle it to make more. Or?
I'm sure they don't just throw it away. Which makes me think that they're making these discs, that they're melting the material and then cutting them again.
Did you ever see any physical properties listed for the material?
Yeah, melting point, a couple other things too. I wrote them down. Gene has them. I don't remember them off the top of my head.
So this little incense burner, if you will, whatever you're sticking this in, is it basically the same color as the element 115?
No, that's the same color as everything else in the 150. Did you ever see the model that was made?
Of the reactor?
Yeah.
I saw it once on the table in here.
Oh, because
when I came over, it was just the.
there's some video on it.
And I think I have the video. Yeah.
Yes, that was half scale. I had a friend build that, make it out of metal, and it was very, very close to what it looked like.
You still have it, the model?
No, I don't. I have the video of it, though.
I have the video of it, I believe.
That was very close.
Looking up, at the ceiling or whatever, is there a deck above the deck we're on, with the chairs and the console?
Yes.
And it goes
Yeah.
up through that deck?
Now, that's where I believe, this is just a guess out of the clear blue sky, should there be any navigating equipment or any other heavy electronic or pseudo-electronic equipment, that's where it is.
On the next deck.
Right. On that, because on the ridges here, you see about 3 foot square black. I don't know if they were windows, ports, or if they were just black areas, but certainly something is going on that other level that, of great interest that I didn't get to see.
And they are square?
Yeah.
Or are they rectangular?
No, they're square. They're square.
But they're black when you viewed it from the outside.
Right. But, there again, the only time I did see it is when it was outside and I was looking directly into the sun.
Yeah. When you look at cars with the blackened windows, they look pretty black, but from the inside you can look out.
Yeah.
And it's used the shade and keep sunlight out. And if you're traveling somewhere got intense radiation, it might be something that
Freezing
you
tank?
from inside.
Yeah, and at that time the sun was directly behind it too, so
Yeah.
really couldn't tell if there was any light inside.
How much headroom did you have, to that next ceiling in there?
No, not much. Not much.
Did
In
you have
fact,
to hunch over in there, or?
Yeah, because you hit, I think you have maybe 10 feet. You have about 6 feet at the center. But in a 10-foot diameter circle here, now you begin to hit. Yeah, now you begin to hit the sides of the wall.
So 6
Not the
feet
most
at the
comfortable.
center. About.
Yeah, approximately.
I think we're
It
dealing
was
with
It was just taller than me.
we're dealing with 4 foot characters. I mean, is that conceivable? I mean, you've
Well,
been
certainly
closer to
5 foot is.
People with
Max.
back problems.
Yeah, no, there's no way a 5 foot person could operate in there.
Yeah.
It was certainly uncomfortable for me, and because I noticed as I walked, even in the center, I could feel my hair sticking up. There was either some sort of static charge or something. Where you're constantly putting your hair down to stop from looking like an idiot, or just a natural reaction. But I always, as I put my hand up on top of my head, I'd hit the wall or hit the ceiling rather. So it was
Did you
very
feel the
close.
hair on your hand stand up when you did that? And like when you run your hand across the front of a CRT?
I don't remember. Okay, I don't remember. But I know I was constantly doing that.
Okay.
Very,
From here,
very
what's the seat
close.
look like?
Very close. But the seat continues down.
Oh, okay.
It's not on a post
Right.
like that.
Okay.
Almost like it was a sheet of rubber and someone pushed it up from underneath.
Like a vacuum form part.
Yeah, like a vacuum form part, yes.
Which, in fact, maybe that would explain a lot how everything was made. Like it really looked like that. Like if there was some sort of mold, and they started out with a piece of metal and then a vacuum form and sucked in these consoles, the seats, and everything, and then there's the level, and then they.
Is that wonderful from a tooling standpoint for a model kit?
Yeah, well, from the
Yeah, I guess it is.
I mean, it's been beautiful. No
easy to clean
undercuts.
up the areas too. I mean, you don't have all these things to reach under and
Yeah, there's nothing to do if anyone was to build it.
Oh yeah, that's perfect for cleaning, keeping it clean.
And the sides would kind of, like your typical sort of 50s fiberglass chairs. Did the sides actually come up around your thighs or whatever? Or, I mean, was it a bucket sort of?
Yeah, it was a bucket seat. To sit on it, you have to sit on the arm.
Okay.
But it was not padded. It was. Of course, it wasn't metal either. Well, maybe it was.
Well, if you weighed 30-some pounds, you probably wouldn't need great padding. And if you were contained perhaps in a force field within the ship, you
I'm
might
trying to
be under
remember
a
if it-
zero-G condition. What
Or
padding do you
minimum
need?
gravity.
I guess. I was trying to remember if it flexed at all.
There weren't any belts or harnesses,
No.
or looks like
If
snaps
there were,
to
they
put them there. Or
No.
Is there any sign anywhere of liquids, anything that dripped, that caused a line? Was the floor textured? Was there any...
Yeah, the floor was kind of interesting. How would I draw this? To open. Let's get this oriented right. I think the door would be here. And right here, this is the access to the lower level.
it's
and it's-
pretty close to the edge, right? I mean,
Yeah, very close to the
very
edge.
Narrow in there.
Yeah, that's why I only fit the top torso of my body in there, because I had to lay and bend and I could just see the amplifiers hanging upside down. This pushes together if you had that's a pentagon, lots of hexagons together in a mesh.
Mhm.
There's an opening here, an area that you can stick your hand in and push, and all the hexagons collapse. You can push it, and that's how you can look down inside. And as long as you hold it, it'll stay. When you let it go, it's a little hexa. How can I describe it without? Can you imagine that kind of a
Self-hinged
honeycomb?
type thing?
Think of a honeycomb made out of thin, like springy metal strips. A large
Okay.
honeycomb, okay? And if it was about that thick and just
So it's a grate.
yeah,
It's a
great,
grate.
made like that, and if you pushed on a
Gotcha.
corner, they would all kind of collapse into each other. It was kind of a neat
Okay.
little door, and holding that open, you can look, and when you step back up, while they return to their shape, they go pop, 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 pop. So you can walk on it. It would be strong in that
What's the
respect.
dimension of the grate?
Uh,
Across the flats of that hex, for example.
2 inches, something just rough.
Okay, so you could walk on it.
Yeah, certainly walk on it, because I stepped on it afterwards to
Push it
see if it
away.
would. But in a lateral force, it just pushed right open, which I thought was really kind of trick.
What was the dimension?
About 2 inches, somewhere in there.
Across the flats.
Yeah, and there was a little hand hole, it looked like, where you could that had nothing in it, where you could just stick your finger and push it
What
open
would you
like
say the
that.
dimension of the whole opening is?
Not very big, because I just fit. about this square because it pushed in on my shoulders. Yeah, I mean I just
Maybe 17 inches.
maybe 16.
16.
Yeah, because
And it was regular. It was square, or was it rectangular?
no, it was square.
Two-inch flats and 16-inch.
Now the floor, aside from that,
Right
is
from
solid,
that's just solid. Yeah.
without a texture. It's just the same gray stainless steel look.
Mm-hmm.
You'd slip if you were on it if it was wet.
Yes.
basically.
Oh, certainly.
It was real shiny.
Yeah, it had more or less of a. You couldn't see yourself, but it was certainly shiny.
And it felt really substantial when you walked. I mean, it felt.
I didn't feel any flex, and I purposely stepped on this to flex it, but it didn't. So that was pretty hefty strips of.
When you moved that, it compressed.
Yeah, the hexagons collapsed in like that.
When you pushed it, did it collapse in a V from the sides, or did the whole thing just move?
No, it collapsed in a V.
It did collapse.
Right from this point. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So folded it looked like this.
Did you see that treatment anywhere else at all?
No, but I thought about that for a long while after I left there. In fact, I think I came home and cut little strips of metal because what a good idea for a
Wall
door of
partition or
sorts. Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
You could just pop, but I couldn't get anything to do that. But
Yet at the same time, it's not really a door. I mean, not a concealing door because you can see through it.
right, but it just operated so easy. But it had to be something very springy, like phosphor bronze or something like that, that would return to its shape. But that takes too much force to.
It was almost like
Pop.
a feeler gauge for a car.
Right, close to that type of metal, or it would spring back easily. But
Was there
Good elasticity.
anything that gave any sign of conventional Earth logic relative to heating or air
I didn't
conditioning
see
or
anything.
airflow or gas flow and environmental things? Just
if there was, it was concealed. Who knows where could it be concealed? I keep blaming everything on the floor I didn't see, but if I went up there and didn't see anything, it would still make perfect sense because I don't know how you can conceal.
the
that
reactor
stuff.
wasn't cooled in any way that you
Reactor wasn't cooled. The reactor was in operation under heavy load. There was no latent heat. That violates one of Newton's first law. There has to be heat somewhere, and it certainly wasn't there. I don't know. There was no cooling, no liquid, no bathroom, unless a lot was removed that I didn't see. But then, because everything had that
It
vacuum
doesn't
molded
have
shape
to
to it.
be in 100% perfect condition.
Yeah, but 100% perfect
Transfers
conversion
of
cannot
everything in
that
conversion.
can't happen
Yeah, I
anyway.
know. Well,
I mean, there could be 98.999, and that little extra 9 is heat, and it should show up. But
Could it be dissipated in the skin somehow? If it's so thick.
no, because I saw the reactor operated out, on a
okay.
bench.
Oh, okay.
It was.
Now you say this one was removed, this panel?
Yeah.
How could you tell it was removed? I mean, was there a difference? Like
Yeah, it looked like you
scrubbed
could
around
see
the edge,
saw
or-
marks on the bottom, so it looked like
okay.
it was.
Okay.
You could tell where the human intervention was.
But
It looked like someone took a chainsaw to the bottom.
And it was like the chairs where it just kind of grew
Yeah.
out of the floor.
Right. That's where that little curve comes from.
what was a proton source?
I don't know.
And what was, you say like it was chainsawed from the floor. Well, what were you seeing? Like a thin section of a wall? Like it was hollow? Where it rose
No,
up?
it was solid.
Solid metal. It was all solid. Huh?
Yeah, which kind of makes you wonder what's in the box then.
Yeah, you'd think they would have cut it up higher or something.
Unless-
they wouldn't have to go through all that metal.
No, I didn't see it because I knew the amplifiers are directly underneath here, and I would have liked to have seen something.
Interacting between
Yeah, a hole even for a
Conduits or-
cable,
yeah.
anything, but there was nothing at all. Or even this flexible line that came off of the top,
Did it
terminated
look like it had
somewhere.
been done recently? I mean, was there like little chunks of metal laying around?
No,
Or-
no, it was very spick and span in there.
Did you get the feeling that the craft was extremely reliable?
Yes. Oh yeah.
I mean, from what you're describing,
The
it
fact
sounds
that
to
it
me that
worked
it's
like
just somebody just understood fully the chemistry, the radioactivity, the
Yeah, that's a
conversions.
ballet is the perfect way to describe it. There's nothing that gets too hot that needs a fan to cool off. If
Yeah.
there's extra heat here, they do something with it.
Yeah.
There is no waste anywhere. It all works in perfect harmony. That's the impression I got, and I didn't see anything to deter me from thinking that way.
Now, you didn't see the ship go outdoors and towed or pulled.
I don't know
or
if they
anything.
started up and hovered it out or someone dragged
Would you
it out.
say then that this particular amplifier wasn't operational because of that panel being gone, and you were only seeing like a 2/3 power, somehow crippled vehicle?
Possibly. No, I'd say no. Because of the way the ring formed around there, it was equal around the perimeter, all the amplifiers. I think there'd be some disturbance here, and the fact that on a bench test, when I saw the amplifier operating, it didn't have a box or console near it. I don't really know if it has anything specifically to do with the operation of it, so I don't think it was crippled.
How many
Well,
chairs did you see?
Two.
Two. On that level?
Yeah.
You never saw the upper level?
And they were right here.
Yes.
Was there anything in front of
Yeah,
it?
it makes a face with eyebrows on it. That's how it looks.
And then the chairs obviously don't swivel or anything. They're
No,
stuck
they're-
facing
right.
Facing this way or facing this way.
Facing this way.
So the two operators would have a central focal point or
Right.
something if they were sitting looking straight ahead. And there was nothing there on the wall that they would be.
No, there
staring at,
was.
right?
There was something removed here. I don't know what it was, but this was definitely cut closer to the ground.
But again, this sort of situation
Right.
where it's solid.
Right. It wasn't that obvious. I'm not 100% sure, but I think there was something there at one time. And when I came in, this is where everyone was hanging out, right here and along the wall. Of course, you have this.
Now, between the time you were in there, how many times did you get in there to look
Once,
at all this?
only once.
And how long was it between that time? Was that after you saw it fly or before?
Before.
And about how much time between? Week, day, hours?
I'd say a couple of weeks.
Okay. So they evidently had time enough to retrofit this with everything they needed to do the flight test. From what you saw. You don't think it could have flown with what you saw?
I don't know. I think it could have.
I mean, let's assume that if it's alien, that they have a reason for everything, and that panel would have been needed if there was supposed to be a panel there.
Right.
And this
Yeah,
guy would
there
be-
is a point there. I don't know that it'll certainly operate with one amplifier working. So I don't know. They'd at least need something to sit on. So yeah, maybe they had to retrofit something on there.
Well,
I wish I could relay that feeling to you how it is to look in there. I mean, it's. But I can't. It's awesome.
well, we're gonna go on the basis of the little gray guys, and work that way. In terms
Certainly something smaller than 5 feet. There's no doubt about that.
Of, yeah.
3.5 or 4 feet would be perfect. 3 feet would be small. I can see something 4 feet running around, 4 foot tall. Still, this space approaching the edge is useless. But then there's not a whole lot you have to pack in there anyway.
Wonder what happens there. When we say useless, I say to myself, look, everything is really so conservative in design and so interrelated. There must be something there.
Even
Or
the
they
empty
stack,
space, I'm sure, has a function
you know,
in some way.
heat exchange or
That's what they stack
Acting
the
as
Levi's that they bought down
plate
there.
condensers, a toroid. What do we got going there?
Something like that.
The tune pipe that's doing something. Is what's going on.
Incredibly small amounts naturally occurring plutonium. I mean, almost amounts you can't even measure, but it does here and there occur naturally. But that's about it. I mean, there is nothing higher than that.
Yeah.
Of course, everything higher than that would decay back down to go through a normal stable radioactive decay, and I just don't think there was enough bang.
Can
In
it
the
be
solar system.
synthesized by
It's
bombardment?
impossible. It's impossible. They've been trying that for a long time. They just can't get anything to stick for very long, above 106. I mean, even 106, 105, 104 is all, are we really sure those two atoms were, it's all, come on. It seems like you'd have to shoot for something. I can't see how you could do it, unless there's a completely different technique that I'm not familiar with.
Yeah.
Certainly not sitting a target in an accelerator and bombarding it with hydrogen nuclei for months and months and months.
Yeah, I know there were programs that were going to set up huge fields to gather monopoles as they came streaking through to us.
That was a
And then-
successful little thing.
And they said, wait a minute, we can't have that much space for this. And who's going to run out there and find the
Those-
monopole that you caught?
Yeah, those projects, and like the giant pools of water waiting for proton decay and things like those are those big projects that just require lots of time. I can't see synthesizing an element like that in any kind
Yeah.
of reasonable quantity.
How do you feel about Dr. Teller at this point?
I'll kill him. If I see him, I'll kill him the next time I see him.
He's totally resisted. I've had correspondence before I knew you, or before you even went on television. We had these correspondence going, and I think I sent you the letters.
Mhm.
And I've written to him. I said, all we need is that one sentence that says Bob Lazar is a liar, and signed by Dr. Teller. That would end all of this. It's not coming.
He's afraid probably that I have something else on him, and I'm sure that's why he's taking that position. He thinks maybe he's got a taped me he's doing something, or a recorded phone call, so he's kind of. But what's his motive? What is his reason behind stonewalling everyone?
Pressure, I guess, from the government, perhaps.
But still, he could. I don't know. I guess there's a lot that I don't know. But
Have you had any contact from anybody, any slightest, anybody from EG&G, anybody that you touched or talked with at one time? Has anybody ever come forward?
there was a couple people that contacted George, supposedly the guy that drove the bus from Broome to S4. One of the security guards out there who were out where the plane lands, and he was just, after the special said, I work at 51, this is my badge number, you can come and look at it, and I saw this guy getting off the plane, if that's worth anything, and he didn't stay at 51 long, he drove somewhere else, but little support guys like that, but no one like, I worked with Bob and we did this, and nothing like that. Just little acquaintances.
Have you ever heard of gravity shields being worked on at Los Alamos?
No.
Well, you have now.
Gravity shields. Huh?
Something called gravity shields. It was in a phone conversation that I got from this news source the other day.
One guy you talked to for an hour.
Yeah, for an hour and a half. It was an
little
interesting
product. A gravity shield.
gravity shields.
You know,
That's what it was
Earth
called.
could you possibly shield from gravity?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, just number one, what is gravity? Do we really know? I mean, did you ever find out what gravity really is? Particle, wave, what? I
No,
mean, we know a little bit about wave.
Yeah, it's certainly a wave. It's not a
You
part.
know, it kind of goes to the light thing, photons or waves or what? You know, what the hell?
Well, it really, it's certainly just the small amount I learned. Certainly, in my mind, tied the unified field theory together a little more than what's known. It's certainly, I mean, gravity, time, and space are really one thing. I don't think there is any difference between them. You know, it's not time, space. It's time, space, gravity. They are all one. It's a single
That
substance.
reminds me. Any illustrations on this warpage of time, space?
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Scientific American has been running some articles recently with all of these
Have they?
distortions. Yeah, with the grids with the big humps and the twists.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I haven't seen an issue of that for a while.
Do we do a,
Yeah, with
a
a
two-dimensional thing and bring it around this way, or how do you want to do it? Do you want to?
Three-dimensional would be better, but how? Because what you want to do is show a disc on the side, but then you kind of want to show the fabric of. How would you show the fabric of space? Well, you can kind of show it as a sheet, but then pinching a part of that sheet and pulling it to the kind of a pseudo three-dimensional. You can't show space in 3 dimensions and show the craft having an active point on it. You have to show it. The space is flat. The craft's
I know
sitting up
that's
in
the toughest thing about it, because you have to put it into a two-dimensional thing.
Yeah, you need an
to show it.
analogy in
And
your
it's
mind.
not two-dimensional.
Right. There's no three-dimensional analogy of space, time.
That's why we need to get the computer system with 3D graphics.
Yeah, if you can have a craft and pick a point in space and then have that become a grid so you can see the distortion come to the craft, and the amplifiers focus in. Now, ABC said they would do that for us.